Number 8. Paige Rice. What began as a joyride in Liverpool, England one day in 2022 ended in tragedy for 27-year-old Callum Miller and 22-year-old Paige Rice. The friends were driving recklessly in Miller's Audi, hitting speeds of nearly 100 miles per hour when the car smashed into a taxi in the Queensway Tunnel. Paige died from her injuries just hours after the collision, and Callum passed away 5 days later. The taxi driver survived with serious injuries after undergoing extensive emergency surgery and was too incapacitated to give a police statement in the days following the accident. According to police, Callum's car was seen speeding along at 98 miles per hour in a 30 miles per hour zone just moments before it crashed into two vehicles. The Audi then collided with traffic posts and hit the taxi head-on, causing it to fly backward. Police initially treated the crash as a potential criminal matter, but as it became increasingly clear that Callum most likely wasn't going to survive, law enforcement dropped the investigation. Had he survived, he would have likely faced a charge of death by dangerous driving. Even though Callum passed away, Paige's mother felt angry that an inquest failed to specifically blame him for the deadly accident. Number 7. Sports bar shooting. In a shocking and totally senseless act of violence that occurred just days before Christmas in 2022, gunfire broke out at a sports bar in Montgomery County, Maryland. According to police, 35-year-old Luis Samuel Rios Rodriguez and 39-year-old Abed Jonathan Maidens Lopez got into an argument with another person shortly before 3 p.m. at a bar and restaurant in Tacoma Park. Both men were kicked out of the establishment, but Rodriguez returned with a gun and began fighting with the person he'd been arguing with before. Then, at some point during the altercation, Rodriguez allegedly pulled a gun and shot the man he was fighting with. The victim was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but thankfully they survived. Law enforcement recovered the gun at the scene and arrested Rodriguez and Maidens Lopez. Rodriguez faces charges of attempted first-degree murder, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, and the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. Maidens Lopez was charged with conspiracy to all the aforementioned counts, and both cases appear to be ongoing. Number 6. Marnie Clayton. When 18-year-old Marnie Clayton failed to return home after leaving a nightclub in Windsor, England at 2 a.m. in early 2022, her family immediately began to panic, and less than an hour later they reported her missing. They had good reason to worry. Marnie had recently gotten out of a toxic relationship with 22-year-old Abid Khan, whom her loved ones described as controlling and abusive. Police had previously told Khan to stay away from Marnie, and now they feared that he'd abducted her. The young woman's disappearance sparked an urgent search that captured the attention of true crime sleuths as far away as Australia. But much to everyone's relief, Marnie was found alive 2 days after she disappeared. She wasn't exactly okay though. She was with Khan more than 60 miles from where she'd vanished, and she accused her ex of taking her against her will. Marnie claimed that Khan had subjected her to a brutal campaign of physical abuse while holding her captive during those harrowing 48 hours. At some point, Marnie managed to use Khan's phone to send her mother a coded message indicating that she was in urgent need of help. Authorities charged Khan with false imprisonment, making threats to kill, battery, assault resulting in bodily harm, and violating bail. And during his trial, the court heard about how Marnie was out celebrating her birthday when Khan approached her and followed her into the women's restroom. Khan demanded Marnie's new phone number, which she changed in an effort to get away from him, but she gave it to him because she was scared. They then got a taxi together, and Khan talked Marnie into going to a hotel with him. However, what began as a consensual encounter soon turned violent. Help finally came, though, when police pulled over a vehicle that the pair were riding in together. In the end, Khan pleaded guilty to putting a person in fear of violence by harassment and was sentenced to 3 years in prison, half of which he's required to serve behind bars before becoming eligible for parole. He's also banned from contacting or going near Marnie, and hopefully this time he'll obey the order. In the meantime, Marnie continues to suffer from flashbacks and depression resulting from the torment she endured. Number 5. Felicia Johnson. In April 2022, 24-year-old Felicia Johnson traveled from her hometown of San Diego to Houston, Texas. Vacations are meant to be all about having fun, But like many people, she couldn't abandon working completely during her travels. To keep up with bills and expenses, and presumably to continue funding her lifestyle, Felicia auditioned for work at a gentleman's club and advertised her services as an escort. But after not hearing from her for an unusual length of time, her father reported her missing. Felicia was last seen leaving a hotel during the early morning hours in an Uber ordered by a 27-year-old man named Chukwuebuka Nwabodo. Then, shortly after her disappearance, her bloodied phone and purse turned up in a local park. Further investigation revealed that Nwabodo had agreed to pay Felicia $500 for an intimate encounter at his residence. And while searching his computer, detectives found some disturbing Google searches for things like "What does bleach do to blood?", "Most forested part of Houston?", "How to delete your history completely?", and "How to get away with murder." Nwabodo had also recently purchased a saw, trash bags, towels, and a flashlight, and Felicia's blood was found in his apartment and car, along with latex gloves, a kitchen knife, and a shovel. Investigators also found photos of what looked like a mutilated woman and 3 other bodies on Nwabodo's phone. They arrested him in connection with Felicia's disappearance, but didn't have enough evidence to hold him at the time, so he was released. Unfortunately for detectives, though, he went on the run. In early 2023, Felicia's dismembered remains were found in the Sam Houston National Forest. Authorities have formally charged Nwabodo with murder and tampering with physical evidence, but he remains on the run as he continues to evade law enforcement. Houston police are hoping that someone with knowledge of his whereabouts will contact them and help bring the fleeing fugitive to justice. Number 4. Randall Collins. 24-year-old Randall Collins disappeared during a night out clubbing in Richmond, Virginia in April 2014, but there are varying accounts of what he was last seen doing. Some said he was seen leaving the club, while others claimed he was just standing outside of it. And at least one other report stated that Randall was seen getting into a car with several other men. Randall's father, Randy Williams, has fought to keep his son's case in the news in hopes that someone who knows something will come forward with important information that could help lead to answers. During a 2022 interview with CBS 6 crime insider John Burkett and the Reopen the Case Foundation, Randy told reporters that his son underwent some major changes in the time leading up to his disappearance. He said that Randall quit drinking and had accepted God into his life. Needless to say, it came as a shock when the family learned that Randall had gone out clubbing on the night that he was last seen. It was simply out of character for him to go out without letting someone in his family know. Randy's belief that Randall was met with foul play was solidified when his son missed several funerals following the deaths of family members, including his mother and grandmother. He would have never voluntarily skipped out on the funerals, according to Randy, who's been waiting for answers for nearly a decade. Investigators have found no evidence of foul play, but it also hasn't necessarily been ruled out. It's also possible that Randall had a seizure or became disoriented, as he already suffered from seizures and alcohol is known to trigger them. Number 3. Jassy Correa. In early 2019, Jassy Correa celebrated her 23rd birthday with friends at a nightclub in Boston's Theater District. During the early morning hours, though, she got into an argument with her friends and split from the group. She went outside and was apparently unable to get an Uber home, at which point a man approached her and offered her a ride. Jassy then got into the stranger's red Buick sedan and was never seen alive again. Investigators identified the mystery man as 32-year-old Louis D. Coleman III of Providence, Rhode Island. Surveillance footage from 2 hours after Jassy was seen leaving the club showed Coleman dragging a woman into his apartment. Further investigation revealed that he'd recently bought duct tape, surgical gloves, bleach, and other cleaning supplies at a Walmart store in Providence. But by the time law enforcement searched Coleman's apartment, he'd gone on the run. 5 days after Jassy vanished, an officer pulled Coleman over along Interstate 95 in Delaware. He apparently knew why he was being pulled over and told the officer, "She's in the trunk." Jassy's body was found crammed into a suitcase. She'd been strangled and bludgeoned to death, and her remains were covered in Coleman's DNA. The evidence was consistent with a brutal attack and showed that the young woman had fought desperately for her life. She'd also caused visible injuries to Coleman's face. Federal authorities charged Coleman with 1 count of kidnapping, resulting in death. A jury then found him guilty following his trial in 2022, and he was automatically sentenced to life in prison without parole after prosecutors opted not to seek the death penalty. Number 2. Jeffrey Joseph Leon. Also known by his stage name Jazzy Jeff Leon, 53-year-old Jeffrey Joseph Leon was a popular DJ in Louisiana's Acadiana region, but he vanished in August 2023 after attending a Zydeco concert in Baton Rouge. According to investigators, Leon was last seen near the concert venue at 2:30 a.m. as he left in his SUV. He called his family from a gas station to let them know he was on his way home and would be there soon. However, nobody heard from him after that. Leon's disappearance made no sense to his wife, Latasha Leon, or his other relatives, who became even more worried when he failed to show up for a DJing gig later that day. It was completely out of character for Leon to miss a gig, especially without notifying anyone. And as the family began to fear that foul play was involved, Latasha pleaded with the public for answers regarding her missing husband's whereabouts. In the meantime, police put out an alert to the public and to neighboring law enforcement agencies to keep an eye out for Leon's tan 2008 Ford Expedition, which had distinctive chrome rims. Answers finally came 2 days later, but to Leon's family, the wait felt like a lifetime, and they were devastated to learn that he'd been in a car accident. According to law enforcement, detectives painstakingly combed the corridor along the highway where Leon was believed to have disappeared. They eventually happened upon footage of Leon at a gas station, presumably the one he called his family from, and began to search the area nearby. Throughout the course of the search, police located Leon's SUV along the highway. It appeared as though he'd been in a single vehicle crash while driving home. At the time of the discovery, authorities didn't suspect foul play, but instead believed that Leon had succumbed to an unfortunate tragedy. They announced that toxicology and further testing would be performed to determine his cause of death. Number 1. Laura Garza. 25-year-old Laura Garza moved from Texas to New York City in 2008 with dreams of making it big as a professional dancer. Her future was cut short just 5 months later, though, when she vanished after leaving a Manhattan nightclub. One can only imagine how Garza's family felt after investigators discovered that she'd been seen leaving the club with a 24-year-old man named Michael Melee, who had a troubling history of attacking women. The young woman's wristwatch was found near the club, but other than that, there was little evidence to suggest where she might have gone or what had happened to her. Finally, in April 2010, nearly a year and a half after Laura vanished, some ATV riders found her remains in a rural wooded area near Mount Cobb, Pennsylvania, roughly an hour's drive from where Melee lived. At the time, Melee was in prison for violating parole in an unrelated case. Following the discovery of Laura's remains, though, he was charged with murder, manslaughter, and evidence tampering. Melee cut a deal with prosecutors and pleaded guilty to manslaughter and tampering with evidence. And as part of the agreement, he was required to provide a detailed explanation of what happened. He claimed that he met Laura at the nightclub and drove her to his home in Wallkill, Pennsylvania. Then, according to Melee's version of events, Laura noticed some things in his apartment that clearly belonged to another woman and got upset. She told Melee she wanted to leave, but he didn't feel like driving all the way back to Manhattan. Melee then claimed that he put his hand over Laura's nose and mouth to quiet her down as she yelled, and that he realized something terrible had happened only after she went limp. But instead of calling for help, he supposedly panicked and put Laura's body in a laundry basket, which he carried out to his car. He drove to the site where Laura's remains were eventually found and dumped her body there. Melee was sentenced to 23 years in prison, not nearly long enough according to her family, who said that they had absolutely no room for forgiveness in their hearts. At his sentencing, Melee apologized for what happened, and the judge stepped in and corrected him, stating, "Not for what happened, but for what you did." According to records, he could see freedom again as early as 2031. Would you rather miss a concert you've been waiting months to see and spent top dollar on tickets for, or get stuck spending an entire week-long vacation in a junky, smelly Airbnb that looked a lot nicer online? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.